Welcome to the Healthy Teams Podcast, the show where we dive deep into what it takes to build strong, resilient teams. I'm your host, and today I'm excited to welcome a guest who brings a whole person approach to health and leadership, James Keppel, CEO of Sarana Health. And at Sarana Health, James leads a team of wellness experts who are redefining what it means to support people's health and taking an approach that is both holistic and highly personalized. And I hope today, James, that we'll be able to talk a little bit not just about health in a clinical sense, but also about wellness as a team value and something that can help fuel productivity, collaboration, as well as human connection in the workplace. James, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Mark, thanks for having me.
All right, thank you. Well, let's jump in. First off, James, could you just kind of give a brief introduction to yourself and tell us a little bit about the type of work that you and your team do at Sarana Health?
Sure. So I'm James Keppel, founder and CEO of Sarana Health, and what we provide is a personalized integrated health and wellness program. And what we do is we base that on advanced testing and a science-based analysis of the underlying causes of various conditions. We deal with a wide range of client types, from people who are super healthy and just want to be more healthy, to people with chronic conditions that maybe the legacy healthcare system hasn't been able to solve.
Interesting. Well, um, so at Sarana Health, as you said, you could take a truly holistic approach to wellness. How does that philosophy translate into the way your team operates and collaborates internally?
Internally, that's a great question because I think a lot of times in company environments, people become sort of aligned on a spreadsheet, and we don't look at things that way. We're a small team, just 10 people right now, but you know we I really think a lot about engagement of people. And engagement, there's a lot of different components to that, but really, everybody's being heard, everybody's got their opinions, everybody's got their input, and this is the way we approach our clients too. We want to really have a one-on-one conversation with them. So when it comes to the team dynamic, I think that we've built a really good culture around mutual respect for each other's expertise. And really, the secret sauce in what we provide to our clients is the fact that we've got a varying number of or wide range of expertise within the team, and everybody can always talk to each other and get input. And it's a really nice dynamic, and we've gotten great feedback because of it.
Awesome. When you think about building a healthy team, what comes to mind? Are there specific practices or values that you like to emphasize, James, in order to maintain well-being across your own organization?
Well, well-being is a very broad term, and it involves a lot of different components, which we try to address within the team and also for our clients, of course. But number one is recognition and really understanding who the people are and how we talk to each other and how we work together. Uh, Obviously, since we're a health-based company and a wellness-based company, everybody is super focused. And it's interesting, everybody on the team has a personal health story, including myself. And that's really why we're able to come together both internally and externally to solve problems, because we've all been there. And that level of empathy, I think, is missing in a lot of programs.
I agree. And when we talk about wellness, I think that your model centers around four pillars, if I'm correct:
Yes.
optimal wellness, nutrition, sleep, and lifestyle.
Yep.
James, which of those do you find is the biggest challenge for modern teams? And how do you help your people tackle that?
Really, I think the biggest issue is engagement and getting people to really want to move the ball forward. You take those four foundations and you can pick apart any one of them and say, you know, if I'm a client, for example, I've got a problem with sleep. I've got a problem with nutrition. Those are relatively easy to solve if the engagement is there with the client and that they really it's the old thing. You have to want it to get it, right? So we get clients who just don't want it as much as the next guy, but that's okay because part of the lifestyle component of our foundations is really overcoming what those blockages are to full engagement. So somebody can say, well, I just can't eat that way for whatever reason. So instead of saying, well, you have to eat that way, because that's the only solution, what we say is, okay, we understand what your issues are. And now we're going to build a nutrition program that works for you, not something that you have to conform to, but a program that conforms to you. And that's a really a big difference with the way a lot of healthcare works right now. It's very prescriptive. And it tends to be very prescriptive in a lot of cases. And it's like, here's the way you do it. And if you don't do it this way, you're not going to feel better or whatever your goal is. So we try and just bridge that gap with the lifestyle component, which is why our health coaches are really the centerpiece of the whole program. Because I jokingly say to my team, as a health coach, you have to be the client's best friend. Okay. You're the first person that they call when they have a problem, not the last person. You're not the roadblock. You're the solution, all those sorts of things. And it's working, basically, is the simplest way to put it.
Well, what a challenge that must be for your team members, because it seems like our society is just set up to kind of promote what I consider to be a kind of a toxic lifestyle.
Mhm.
And how do you get your coaches to connect with the clients on that very personal level?
Well, this
Um,
is this is where the individualized person or approach really comes in because you've got to the client needs to understand the coach needs to understand the client. And there's a dialogue that goes back and forth between the two of them. And like I said, they got to be their best friends, right? Um, so it's always a challenge. And you get some people who come into the program and they're just like, I want to do everything. Give me a list and tell me what time to do this and this and this. And you get other people who are kind of like, well, I'm not really going to put the effort in, whatever. But the coaching team that we have, uh, they're highly trained and they're all board certified, top level certifications across the board, uh, because we want them to have that deep understanding of how to bridge those gaps and really get to the issues in a positive reinforcement sort of manner.
Well, and there's just so many benefits to having health. Certainly for businesses, if we want our employees to perform at their peak, they need to be healthy. They need to have good physical health. They need to have good mental health.
So
Is your company doing a lot of work with businesses to kind of help foster that health within organizations?
yeah, we have a program called Teams, which is designed for exactly that corporate wellness program, and it's in a very different sense than what you typically get from a corporate wellness program. But let me just reel off some stats here that I think you would find interesting if your audience doesn't already know them. 70% of companies in the U.S. and these stats are from sort of all over the place, so I'm not going to quote where they come from, but they're all uh, very reliable sources. So 70% of companies with over 200 employees have a wellness program in place. Okay, that in itself poses a challenge for the smaller companies because you've got to figure out what the balance is cost wise and all that sort of thing. But Studies also find that you get about 40% staff participation, which is a very good number. At 20 to 40 is kind of the target that you go for. 40% is great. And when you craft an effective team wellness program, which is very different than an ineffective one, obviously, there are a lot of benefits to the company and to the people. So, you have like a 15% positive cost impact across the board. And cost impact goes into a lot of things, absentee rates and satisfaction and all that sort of thing. But 60% of the staff typically have fewer sick days. Do the math. Pretty easy to say, okay, well, that's a positive. There's a 25% reduction in turnover in these companies, which is amazing. I mean, that is a very, very big number, because I don't know how everybody else approaches it, but I think of when somebody comes on to a company in general, it takes about 3 months for them to really be effective. So you've got to invest in them. So turnover is a killer, obviously. And here's one that I love. 80% say they like their jobs more and that they will recommend the company to their friends. So you not only have retention, you have a channel to get new people to come in. So when you wrap all that up, it's to me kind of a no-brainer that you would want to have that type of program.
Yeah, I mean, that just really tracks with me, James. And I think from the employee's perspective, the employee is going to feel that the company truly cares about them. And I
Absolutely.
think, yeah, if they have that feeling of value and connection, it only makes sense that they're going to be less likely to be dissatisfied or to want to go to a different company.
Right. Well, this
You
goes
know?
back to what we earlier in the conversation, we talked about engagement. Okay. I don't look at anybody on our team as an employee. I never use that word. They're my partners. They're the people who are going to make the company go. I can sit here and talk all day long, but if they're not fully engaged with what they're doing, how can I expect the company to succeed? So I spend a lot of time really working with building the relationships with the people. And as the company gets larger, of course, that gets harder to do from my position, but I'm hoping to have this core group that will always be the people who were there from the beginning. They've been rewarded, and they're recognized for their achievements along the way. And then that just creates a flywheel effect where everybody else who comes into the company sort of adopts that culture. And culture is everything.
It really is. And workplace culture plays a huge role in overall health. Um, as CEO, how do you foster the culture at Sarana Health that really reflects your personal values around individualized care and prevention? I think it might be particularly maybe kind of challenging because that's what you do on the day to day, right?
It comes down to the people that you select for the team. So when I think about how I bring people into the company, I don't think about I have this position now, I need somebody to fill it. I find people. I find what they're interested in. What it's the carrot, dangling the carrot kind of thing. What is their interest? What are their goals? And how do I find a place within the company for them and their personality? So to answer your question about how does the company reflect my values, companies are reflections of the people, and people don't hire companies; they hire people, right? When you look
Right.
at it from the client perspective. So, my values are obviously going to be different than other people on my team, but in some areas. But I think in general, there's a center that we can always come back to where we're all on the same page. So, I'll go off on LinkedIn and rant about something, and everybody just kind of knows that's me, and they have to decide whether they want to be around that or not, just like I need to decide whether I want to be around them and their personality or not. It's kind of like being married. You spend more time with the people that you work with than you do with your family in a lot of cases. So it's a challenge, but it's one that, it's the key to building a successful company. And this is my fourth time around starting companies, and I can't say I've done everything right, but I've tried, and I hope that my team knows that I'm always trying. And I'm going to make mistakes. They're going to make mistakes, and that's just life.
So, James, what lessons have you learned over your experience as CEO of Sarana Health and these prior companies about not just supporting your team's mental and physical wellness, but also trying to balance that with driving high performance and client satisfaction?
Well, this comes down to a core belief that I've had about business since day one, which is if you're chasing money, that's the wrong way to go. What you got to chase is value. And there's internal value, there's external value, you got both sides of that. And I hope that what we're doing internally is reflecting with our clients on the external side. But when you really focus in on what the important stuff is, then that's where the success comes. And success can be measured in many different ways. My number one value, or my number one measure of success, is our client happy? Okay. And when you're in the health and wellness business, results are kind of, they're subjective and there's objective. Okay. And subjective is, I feel great or I feel terrible. Right. But when you get to the objective side, that's where I think one of our key differentiators comes in that we're a science-based company. So when we look at physiology, we don't look at just, acceptable ranges and these sorts of things. It's a matter of how all the pieces go together that really is the differentiator. And we do that within the team. We do it outside. And, hopefully that is where that measure of success comes. Is everybody happy from a subjective standpoint and an objective standpoint? And we can show the results. We can say your levels on X came in at, 5, and they should be at 10. And forget acceptable ranges from labs. I've got I could do a whole podcast just on why that's wrong, but, or in my opinion, at least. But somebody comes in at 5, we say that they should be at a 10, and then we can show them over time. Here, you were 5, now you're a 7. Now we're going to make some changes, and those changes are going to get you to 10. Okay, next time it's 9. Okay, we're almost there. Keep going. Make some more changes. Health and wellness is not a one-time thing, which a lot of pharmaceutical companies would like you to believe, but it's a constant process of iteration. And I think that's where the difference comes in with this personalized approach.
Well, I would imagine that you get some of your clients who may come to you in kind of a crisis, perhaps, where
Mhm.
the traditional healthcare system, they may have run out of options or acceptable options that
Right.
they're willing to undertake. Being science-based, how do you and your company kind of integrate with the story that they've had up to this point, and then how do you assist them to hopefully be able to reach their health goals?
Yeah, we do get people who come in crisis situations, and a lot of every condition and every person is totally different. So it's hard to generalize this kind of stuff. However, I can give you an example. Okay. We had one client who, she just didn't feel right. Something was wrong. And she went to the legacy healthcare system and they did every test imaginable. And they said, well, you're older, you're female, it just kind of happens and just get used to it. And they tried some medication, but it was a standard sort of off the shelf stuff. And she came to us, and within 3 months, we had we weren't able to reverse the condition, but we were able to manage it. And And that was a major difference because she went through 4 years of no answers. And then in 3 months, we were able to just make some minor sort of lifestyle changes, some nutritional changes, some sleep habits, all the foundations. And she got there. And in other cases, you get people who come in and say, I'm pre-diabetic, or we determine that they're pre-diabetic. Okay. A lot of people think diabetes is just like you have it and then you take insulin and that's your life. That's not the case. It's reversible in many cases through primarily nutrition. So that's where it comes to these, looking at the cause as opposed to masking the symptoms. That's really the difference in where we're going at it. We're going at it from one end, the legacy healthcare system kind of goes at it from the other end.
And do you typically do a lot of like traditional tests, like lab work and so forth?
Yeah.
I would imagine to establish a baseline. And
Yep. We have a proprietary lab testing protocol that we use, and we have not invented any new labs, just to be clear on that. What we do is we take existing proven science and we use those lab results in a combination that's unique to the way that we look at physiology. So if you say there are 10 body systems, and people will come up with different numbers, but say that there are 10, they all have to work together and they have to talk to each other. And until you understand the balance between all those systems, it's very hard to get to the cause of whatever the condition is. So that lab testing that we've developed which we're always revising, by the way, because there's always new science. That is the core of where we start on the physical side. Now, on the lifestyle side, that's a different challenge. That's more just understanding the roadblocks, as we talked about earlier. But from a physical side, the lab testing is the core of what we do.
yeah, and I think it's kind of interesting, James, that we all, we're human beings. We've all lived up to this point, but so many of us, and I think this is even true of highly educated people, don't really understand how to optimize their own health. And, they're probably suffering from nutrition related issues, sleep related issues. And all of these things can have just a profound impact on their overall, their health, their happiness, their well-being, their productivity in the workplace as well.
Yeah, and the natural tie between the, do I feel well outside of work, and how does that apply to what I do at work? There's no line there. They're not different. It's the same thing. It's the same person. So if you're at the top of your game and optimal wellness is the goal, then obviously your productivity at work is going to go up because you just feel better about yourself and your life. It's a very simple kind of formula to get there, but you have to look at those four foundations. Sleep is incredibly, and it's coming into the consciousness now that it's important. But our CMO is a neurologist by training. He happens to know this integrated approach because he's just got an open mind to that type of treatment protocol. But he's a neurologist and he's a sleep specialist. So that's where we start there. We've got certified nutrition specialists, that's the top certification that you can get, and it's a science-based certification in nutrition. It's not like a dietitian or any of that stuff. They understand the science of what's going on with the type of food that you take in. So when you balance all that stuff, all of a sudden you just start to see things that you might never have seen before.
Yeah, that's absolutely fascinating. So, James, in today's fast-paced world, burnout is real. And I would imagine on your team with that, the intense connections that your team members are making with clients, Are there any early warning signs that you look for your team members where you think they might be potentially overloaded? Any interventions that you ever have to undertake to kind of support your team and take care of them?
Well, being an early stage company, we're at a point where things are pretty intense. We're trying to build something special here. We have luckily not, to my knowledge, experienced any kind of burnout. Everybody is really dedicated to what we're doing. They believe in it. It's not a job. It's more like a lifestyle kind of thing. And so we haven't had to deal with it. However, for our clients, and when you look at this Teams program where we're in corporate wellness, burnout is an enormous problem. People don't like going to work. They don't like what they're doing. They want to get out of there. It's just like, how do I get a paycheck and I get home? That comes down to company culture. So what I do is back again, I go to engagement. Okay. I make sure that when I number one, I check in with everybody on our team individually once every 3-ish months. And I just say, how are you doing? I have no agenda. I want to hear what you think. Tell me about what you think we're doing right. Tell me what we're doing wrong, and that's it. It's not a review of them. It's more of them reviewing the company, which is great. And I hopefully that makes them feel empowered. So I would urge everybody who's looking at any kind of corporate wellness program to take the same sort of approach. I've worked, I haven't had a job in a long time, but I've worked in situations where like the CEO doesn't even know who most of the people are. Okay. So when you're talking about a company of thousands of people, sure, that makes sense. When you're talking about a team of 10, you got to know who the people are. And,
Right.
I just think that going about it that way is what makes sense. And it all comes down to this core value of treat people like you want to be treated. So when you go to work, do you want to just like see that, oh, your productivity is down 7% because you didn't put this many things in that box or whatever your position is? Or do you want to hear, what can we do better? Let's talk a little bit about maybe what you could do better and how can we improve so that you can put more things in the box faster, as opposed to you're not putting things in the box fast enough, and everybody else on the team is 10% better than you. And what good is that?
Yeah, I agree, and it's really helpful to be able to just to talk with people. I try to do that at my own company. I do exactly what you do, James, where I sit down and just talk with them and just say, "How's it going?" Check
Yeah.
in with them and make sure they feel valued. But you're right, the bigger the organization, the harder that becomes.
Yeah, well, that's
There's
that's my challenge is if we do get to the type of numbers that, and we don't want to be a giant corporation by any stretch, because I think you lose that personal touch. But I want to make sure from my standpoint that I am always doing the best job of knowing who everybody is. And that takes time, and it's easy to get lost for a lot of people, but it's a major area of focus for me. I if I don't have my people happy with what we're all doing together, then that's a recipe for things going wrong or not as right as they could.
James, just a privilege to talk with you today, and I appreciate what you're doing with individuals. I appreciate what you're doing with organizations. I wish there was a way that we could bring this same knowledge to schools where it could be taught to children. It should be, in my opinion, just a core element of their education, just like math and science. Wellness is that important.
Yeah, the unfortunate thing about, well, I'll address how we're trying to address that in a second. But the unfortunate thing about the current environment, especially, is that you got things like music and the arts just get rid of it. Okay. If I didn't have the music program when I was in elementary school, I don't know who I would be right now. It was very important to me. It's been a very important part of my life, but it's like, hey, get rid of that. Costs too much. Right. So the idea of introducing wellness and just even nutrition in school lunches and these silly things that are easy to solve, uh, unfortunately, is kind of getting left by the wayside. Now, what we're doing to try and advance that is we are attempting to go into school systems and teach this. And that could be just, the one day thing. It could be, in one case, we've got a private school that we're hope to be advancing things with, where we want to send our people in there for a week or two and not just talk at the kids, but if we take nutrition, for example, in this particular school, part of what they do is they cook their own meals. Okay. So we're going to teach them what we think about how to cook a balanced meal. And, don't buy. I always say I'm the jackass at the grocery stores looking at the labels on everything. Okay. But you have to look at the labels because the food system that we have right now is way off. That's another topic for another day. But when we're in the schools, hopefully we can teach the kids that when it says that there's 200 milligrams of sodium in or 2000 milligrams of sodium in there, maybe that's not a good idea to eat that.
Right, right. Maybe it would taste like cardboard if it wasn't for all that salt.
Exactly. Well, I can tell you, sodium is a personal issue for me that I always have to be watching, and I've cut my sodium intake down phenomenally over the past 5 years, and it's made a big difference. But go to the grocery store and try and find stuff without a high sodium content. It is really, really hard. And when you see the label that says low sodium, that's a relative term, okay? Low
Yeah,
sodium to somebody else might be 750 milligrams. To me, low sodium is 10, you know? So that's where you got to watch the labels. You got to understand what you're looking at. And I always say that 80% of what we do is education.
yeah.
And if we can educate people so that they understand what they're putting in and how it affects them and their overall sense of wellness, that's a win across the board for everybody.
Well, James, I wish you and your team all the success, and I hope that the school systems will really embrace what you're bringing to the table because it would help America so much just to give kids this foundational knowledge that's going to be so essential to their physical and mental well-being for years to come. Ultimately, it's a good thing for society. It would reduce the healthcare burden on society and businesses for their future employees if people would just learn these basics.
Yeah,
Reality is, kids don't know. They buy what the commercials tell them to buy,
right.
and anyways, and that's just
Yeah.
not
Tell a
the
kid that you
healthiest path.
can't tell a kid that you can't have the cereal with a lot of sugar in it, and like, what do you mean? All I see are commercials for the stuff with a lot of sugar in it. But I'll throw another stat at you since you talked about the future of society. We've got 330-ish million people in the United States. 200 million people have at least one chronic disease. That's 66% of the population. And it's not getting any better. So if we don't get on the front of this, we talk about overall healthcare costs and the economy and that sort of thing. It's going up every year. It's not going down. It's not even leveling out. It's getting worse. So part of our mission is to reverse that, and the number one place to get to people is at work, really.
Yeah, yeah.
So if we can get companies to understand the value of this, and hopefully some of the statistics that I put in there with the hardcore, here are the dollars you're going to save, hopefully that sort of moves us toward that goal of just being better off in general.
Wow. Well, James, what a great conversation. I feel like you and I are kind of kindred spirits in a way, and just a pleasure speaking with you. And James, before we wrap up, could you let our listeners know where they could find you and learn more about Sarana Health?
Yeah, best resource is the website, which is sarana.health, not saranahealth.com, sarana.health. And you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm there and kind of a loudmouth on LinkedIn, so pretty easy to find me. But that those are the best ways. My direct email is james@sarana.health if anybody wants to get in touch.
Well, we're connected now on LinkedIn, so I look forward to reading some of your posts there, James.
It's been a
And
pleasure, Mark. Thank you.
oh, thank you. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to the Healthy Team podcast. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to like and subscribe, share it with your team members or anybody who's passionate about healthy teams and workplace culture. And we'll be back soon with more conversations about helping you build stronger, healthier teams. And until next time, stay well and lead well. Here we go.